Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to debunk some of the common myths about red meat and cholesterol. We're going to talk about the real impact of red meat on heart health and metabolic diseases. And finally, we're going to talk about how to choose the right kind of red meat for optimal health.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Ferrigno Freedom channel. For those of you who are returning and for those of you who are here for the first time, welcome. Glad to have you here. My name is Dante Ferrigno and I've been doing a carnivore diet known as the Lion Diet now for nearly 4 years. And it has changed things in my life like you just wouldn't even believe. I would certainly encourage you to go back and watch my first video, 125 days on Lion Diet, if this is your first experience on Ferrigno Freedom channel, because you can really see how this all got kicked off by a crazy way of eating that I thought was the only choice I had left to save my life. Turns out it was true. And it has been a wild ride since. So I would encourage you to check it out. But meanwhile, with Christmas coming up, I wanted to be sure to encourage people that you're going to have some conversations if you've been doing a carnivore diet over the holidays. You may not be able to avoid those conversations. You may even feel compelled to force those conversations because you've experienced such changes. But I would encourage you to lay back on the force and listen for people who are interested to know. And one of the things they're going to want to know is, how do you overcome all the things they've heard bad about red meat? Well, Dr. Phillip Ovadia has been making some waves in the carnivore community now for a while, and I've seen a few of his videos, and I've even collaborated with him on a large group video that we did at KetoCon for 2023. So he's a very interesting doctor. He is a heart doctor, so if you want to listen to somebody who wants to give you advice about eating red meat, and you're afraid you're listening to a chiropractor or something like that, Dr. Ovadia is a heart doctor. So let's see what Dr. Ovadia has to say about debunking red meat myths, what you need to know.
Hi, I'm Dr. Phillip Ovadia, your guide to understanding the relationship between red meat and metabolic health. Today, I'm going to break it down because most people are caught in the crossfire of conflicting information around red meat and metabolic health. Here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to debunk some of the common myths about red meat and cholesterol. We're going to talk about the real impact of red meat on heart health and metabolic diseases. And finally, we're going to talk about how to choose the right kind of red meat for optimal health. Let's jump right in and talk about some of the common myths about red meat and cholesterol. First, we need to understand that cholesterol isn't the enemy and how it's been misrepresented in the dietary guidelines. Cholesterol is a substance that is vital for life. We literally would not exist without cholesterol. It makes up our cell walls and it serves many important purposes in our body, like being the precursor to many of the essential hormones in our body and playing a part in our immune system. The diet heart hypothesis was first put forth in the 1950s, and it theorized that the more cholesterol that we ate, the higher our blood cholesterol levels would be, and that then those increased blood cholesterol levels were what was leading to the development of heart disease. And it turns out that we now have plenty of information to show that both parts of the diet heart hypothesis are incorrect. The vast majority of the cholesterol in our body is synthesized by our body in the liver. It does not come from the dietary cholesterol that we eat. And because of this, limitations on dietary cholesterol have actually been removed from the dietary guidelines. But that wasn't very publicly promoted because of all the years that they had been telling people to avoid dietary cholesterol.
You know, and that's one of the biggest things about all of this stuff when it comes to getting the truth out of these organizations that have been skewed by financial interests, that have been skewed by some other interest for whatever reason, usually financial, but a lot of these interests, power is far more important to them than money. And if you don't know the difference, you should research the difference, because money is not power. Power is something totally different. that I am not interested in pursuing. The only power I want is the power to rule over my own life and my own control, my own body, have self-control. That's the only power I care about, and the power to take care of my family the best that I can. But when it comes to having power over others, forget it. And that's what's wrong with a lot of these researchers, is that they were affected by the power, the prestige, the financing. There's so many things that can cause a person to say things that they've convinced themselves they believe, even when the evidence tells them the opposite. And unfortunately, it looks like we've been doing a lot of that when it comes to how we've come up with our nutritional guidelines, starting all the way back with Ansel Keys and the whole cholesterol thing. I've covered this in many videos as well that I would encourage you to look up at a future time. But he is not lying here. I mean, he's not lying. I would hope to think he's not lying anywhere in the video. But here's something I've been saying for years as a layperson, and you have a cardiac doctor talking about the same thing. So hopefully this will help with some of the discussions that you may have over your holiday season. Let's continue on.
And then many of the studies that purported to show a relationship between saturated fat and cholesterol intake and the outcomes of heart disease turned out to be poor epidemiologic studies that could not show true causation. They could only show correlation between these things. And this is a very important concept to understand. As a simple example, I like to explain to people that if you did a study on rainy days, you would see that there are lots of people using umbrellas. And if you didn't know better, you might think that somehow the umbrella was causing the rain. We of course know this not to be true, but that is similar to the way that a lot of the early science around saturated fat, cholesterol, and heart disease was done. And yes, there may be some correlations there, but it turns out that there is not causation. So let's talk about the real impact of red meat on heart disease and metabolic diseases. There have now been extensive scientific studies that show that there is no causative effect between eating red meat and the development of heart disease. There was a large review of the scientific evidence that was published a few years ago in the Annals of Internal Medicine that showed that there was no significant linkage between the consumption of red meat and the development of cardiovascular disease, or for that matter, cancer, another common misconception that you may hear. It turns out that a diet that is low in carbohydrates but high in protein, including red meat, can actually help to reverse many of the underlying metabolic disorders that increase the risk of heart disease. The key ones are insulin resistance and diabetes. And we now know that a high protein diet, which includes plenty of red meat, is a very effective way to improve insulin resistance and can actually reverse type 2 diabetes. Now, it is important to understand the difference between processed and unprocessed red meat in dietary studies. Processed red meats are things like hot dogs and sausages, for instance, that may have a lot of other added ingredients like sugar. And many of the studies that are purported to show a relationship between red meat and things like cardiovascular disease and cancer are looking at people consuming large amounts of processed red meat. Now, when you look at something like processed red meat that also includes a lot of sugar and other chemicals, how can one reliably say that it was the red meat itself and not the sugar and other chemicals in that food that was causing the outcomes that we see?
Exactly. And that's even like the report that came out of Harvard a few months ago that indicated that red meat causes diabetes. They were looking at studies of people eating the standard American diet and adding red meat to it, not removing all the ultra-processed garbage and all the sugar and the seed oils and adding meat to their diet, but just mixing it in with it. I mean, the stuff that's in the food that we eat on a regular basis, so much of it is not food. When you add enough of that over time, even good clean food like meat is going to be affected while you're digesting it, because all that other poison and toxin has got to go through there too. And that's just causing more and more problems. As a matter of fact, the sugar that you're eating that would cause you to normally release all the electrolytes in your body while you're only consuming meat will cause you to retain salt and cause you to have more diabetic related problems if you're still consuming sugar. But if you're not consuming sugar, then you're going to see that blood pressure go down. You're going to see those effects that would normally happen when you eat salt and you retain water go away when you are on a carnivore diet, because you're pouring through those electrolytes so quickly when you're on a carnivore diet because you're not retaining them. So that's one of the reasons why, especially in the first 2 years I did this diet, I used a lot of salt. I took a break on the salt for a while over the past year and a half. I've been experimenting with adding salt back to my water like I used to. And you can watch one of my other videos where I talk about making Soleil water if you're interested in knowing about how I salt my water or why I put salt in water. Salt is a wonderful mineral that is so important for our bodies. You've got two electrolytes present in there. You've got chloride and sodium, which both are electrolytes that your bodies need to function properly. You know, there are other electrolytes out there like calcium and potassium and magnesium. And I find that I don't need nearly as many of those. As a matter of fact, I haven't taken any calcium supplements and I haven't noticed any ill effects on that. My calcium numbers still look good when I get blood work done. I do take Redmond's Relight product also, which is great for me, especially in the morning, because I like to use a hot cup of water, a hot mug of water with a little scoop of Redmond Relight in there. And that's my coffee. And when I can stay away from coffee, I am so much better off because it's not making my adrenals so excited. Anyway, I got sidetracked. I just wanted to be able to talk about what he was talking about there, about the importance of that.
And furthermore, when you look at the epidemiologic studies that are most often used to purport a benefit, a relationship between red meat and negative outcomes, the people that are eating red meat in those studies are largely consuming them with other processed foods. Here in the US, when someone says they eat a hamburger, it usually means red meat plus the toppings, plus the bun, plus the French fries and the soda that they drank with it. And yet these researchers want to blame the red meat itself instead of looking at all the other components of that.
Not to mention the ketchup, which is loaded with sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Even the salt at restaurants has dextrose added to it a lot of times as an anti-caking agent. So it's like there's sugar in everything. You've just got to be an ingredient policeman if you're going to try to mix and match what you're doing on a carnivore diet. That's one of the reasons why I find it so much easier. Just stay strict on your carnivore diet and it works fine. If you're blessed enough to be able to do a keto diet and stay beneficial from that, then I say do that too. But when it comes right down to it for me, the cleaner I stay, the further away I stay from anything, and it probably relates to the gut issues that I had when I started this way of eating, the better I am all the way around. Because when I start eating things that affect my leaky gut, it can affect my consciousness as well. It can affect my mental capacity, because your gut is a big part of the way you're able to think. And ever since I've been doing a strict lion diet, I have had no brain fog. I have felt fantastic. But in the times where I have interjected foods, especially when experimenting or when using any type of comfort-seeking type of eating situation, where you get a desire for something and you do it anyway, it's always worked out badly. And it's only when I can stay clean that it seems to make such a big difference for me. Now, that's not going to be the case for everybody. There are a lot of carnivores out there that can still eat cheese, and they can have all the spices they want, and they can have pork and chicken and fish. See, I only eat ruminant meats, and you can look into that on that video I mentioned earlier, 125 days on lion diet, so you can know what I'm talking about. But you got to do it differently for your own body. But the key thing is the red meat by itself is not causing the problem. And if anything, when it's used alone, it almost always, or at least in every case that I know of, has shown improvement in your health when that's all you're eating is good, clean, specifically ruminant meat if you want the best. And then also making sure that it's not overcooked so that it's not denatured and hasn't lost all of its nutrient abilities. It's truly amazing what is in red meat.
So, how can you choose the right kind of red meat for optimal health? Well, first and foremost, you want to avoid the processed meat with added sugars and other unhealthy fillers. You want to focus on eating whole, real animal protein, like steaks, ground beef, and even organ meats, which themselves have unique nutritional additional benefits. And finally, as best as you can, you want to find quality sources of your red meat. This can include connecting with local ranchers who can be a great source of high quality meat at lower prices, because you've cut out all the middlemen between the rancher and the supermarket when you go directly to the rancher. And have a conversation with them, understand how they were taking care of the cows, because that will give you a deeper appreciation of that red meat that you're consuming. So, I hope you found this helpful, and I hope this clarified the relationship between red meat and good metabolic health. If you need more information,
I think it was very helpful, and I'm glad we were able to review it together so that we could share this information with our friends. And I'm glad he's got this video out there. I mean, he's already got, what is it? How many views are on this? 71,000 views. So, recommend this video to your friends who are convinced that red meat's bad for them. I mean, here you have a heart doctor actually talking about the benefits of red meat. Here you have a layman who's been talking about the benefits of red meat for nearly 4 years. And I have said almost everything he has said at one point or another during this video, but I'm not a doctor. So a lot of times people look at that and they say, that's just your experience. That's just anecdotal evidence. That's nothing. Well, here you got it from the doctor's mouth. If you need that, then there it is. Personally, I have to go based on my experience, because so many people seem to be lying to us about everything when it comes to doctors and medicines and even supplements and things that we can take. I am so skeptical of all these extra things, but I also understand that you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So it's good to investigate some of these things. Like I did a video recently on bentonite clay, something I never would have thought I would be considering looking at, but it's become a part of my regular routine. So I shared a video talking about that. I've done a video talking about, in that video, I talked about xylitol as well, because in both cases it was relating to a product that has to do with brushing your teeth. So, ingredients are important to know and understand. But the most important thing you can do is know that you don't have to wait for anybody to tell you how to get started on eating a carnivore way of eating, because all you're doing is eating food. You're just choosing to eat food that you've been told for a long time doesn't have good health effects. Well, I don't know what else can be an example. I've gone from nearly 300 pounds to being under my high school wrestling weight, and I maintain the lowest weight I have as an adult ever since I was 18 years old, even at age 52. And all I eat is meat. So I would probably be even better if I was perfect at it, if I never made mistakes. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't make mistakes. I've made my mistakes, but I get up and I learn from them, and I remember how painful they were, and I try to keep from making them again anytime soon. And that's how I encourage you to do it as well. If you guys found this video to be helpful or encouraging to you, I hope you will share it with others. Also, be sure to check out the merch shop, especially at Christmas time. I made these meaty Christmas shirts just so that you could have something that's fun that you could wear that indicates that you're a carnivore without being all in the face about it at the same time. And you can have fun with your family and maybe even have an opportunity to talk about it in a nice way. So that's what I made these shirts for. But there's tons of other things that I have on my site there. I include also all the products that I use on my website at ferrignofreedom.com. There's a number of things you can do on my website, including letting me know about your carnivore story. And if you'd be interested in sharing your story with my audience to help other people who were in situations like you were in, please do that. And also, I offer coaching there on the channel. So if you feel like you need to speak to me face-to-face, I've got several different options for group coaching or even individual coaching. So I'd encourage you guys to check those out and see what you think, and let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.
If we pay extra, could we maybe get some grease or fat?